We all know that if a fire breaks out at sea, we are going to have to deal with it ourselves, as help could be many miles away. We all carry out regular fire drills, but if a fire broke out on board today, is everything and everyone as prepared as they need to be? This title is here to help you find ways to improve the management of firefighting on your ship. Ideally, you should watch this film with at least 2 of your colleagues, so that you can discuss what you've seen. We will ask you some questions at the end of the film, so that you can reflect on what you have seen and heard. A vessel's shipboard management system should contain detailed emergency procedures for fire protection and firefighting. However, these need to be regularly reviewed and tested and rehearsed with onboard drills. An important outcome from planning and the basis of all emergency responses is the muster list. This defines where everyone reports to in an emergency and what their duties are. This allows crew to prepare themselves for their duties, including any role that they might have as a backup if someone else is not available. A properly planned muster list should match the roles of the crew to their experience, knowledge, and physical fitness. The person in overall command of directing firefighting operations is usually the master. Their responsibilities include formulating a plan to fight a fire, organizing teams, and allocating roles to the team. But they should also regularly monitor firefighting plans to see that they are effective. In some firefighting situations, we will have an on-scene commander. The on-scene commander is in charge of operations at the scene of the fire, under the direction of the overall commander. Typically, the on-scene commander will be the vessel's chief officer or chief engineer. When creating or reviewing firefighting plans, we need to consider the limitations on the use of firefighting media. For instance, water may not be effective on flammable liquids, those with a flash point less than 29 degrees Celsius, since it will not prevent the evolution of flammable vapor. Water applied to some burning chemicals will make the fire worse and, if applied to a burning, non-water soluble liquid, it can cause it to spread. When foam is applied to some water-soluble products, they can absorb the water and break down the foam, reducing its effectiveness. Carbon dioxide reacts with some metals, such as magnesium, and will not cool a fire. Some gases used in fire-suppressing systems, such as FM200, can be dangerous to inhale if they have been exposed to a very hot surface. So firefighting plans need to take this into account, and crew need to be made aware of these dangers. We need careful planning for fires involving dangerous goods. By obtaining the UN number and proper shipping name from the cargo manifest, the crew can consult the IMO's Emergency Response Procedures for Ships Carrying Dangerous Goods, the EMS Guide. This is contained in the supplement to the IMDG code and contains advice on the best tactics to fight the fire by referencing the appropriate emergency schedule in the dangerous goods list. The IMDG code also gives the characteristics of dangerous goods. In some cases, the best tactic is to leave the dangerous goods to burn themselves out, using boundary cooling to stop the fire from spreading. When in port, we will have to plan and control the first response to a fire. However, with sure firefighters at hand, it could be that a fire chief takes full charge of the situation after a briefing from the master, though the master retains overall responsibility for the vessel. For a tanker fire on a refinery berth in the USA, the Oil Pollution Act 1990 requires there to be a qualified individual associated with the facility. This person represents the facility and liaises with local firefighters. They can be contacted and are able to obtain resources such as professional salvage and firefighting teams. To check if firefighting plans are effective and increase their resilience, we need to have effective onboard fire drills. Drills also help to check equipment and train personnel in its use. They also serve as a reminder to the crew of the dangers of a fire. To be effective, a drill has to be as realistic as possible and have defined, measurable objectives. This means using a location where a fire could start and varying it with subsequent drills. Using the actual people and equipment that would be involved and simulating the consequences of a fire, such as a power failure, secondary fires, and injuries. It's also important to record events and to debrief after the drill. This should be done to consider good and bad points, as well as actions required, and to test improvements for the future. Here is a reminder of the main learning points from this chapter. The muster list plays a key role in how we organize firefighting, so it should be regularly reviewed. Firefighting plans need to take account of the dangers of applying some types of extinguishing agents in certain situations, for instance with dangerous goods. Regular, realistic fire drills are essential to build up the resilience of the crew, to enable them to cope in a real emergency. So far, we've said that we should have well-established and drilled procedures for fighting fires. But let's take a moment to think about our very first actions when the alarm is raised. What are our immediate priorities? We need to assess the situation by getting as much information about the fire as possible. We should then move quickly to restrict the spread of the fire. We need to quickly determine if there are any hazards nearby, such as gas cylinders or chemicals, so that we can either remove them or start boundary cooling to protect them from the heat of the fire. Once the muster has been held, we will know if we need to search for missing persons. We should shut off fuel supplies and contain the fire by closing fire doors, weathertight doors, and vent flaps. Quickly shutting off ventilation stops the spread of both fire and smoke and helps keep the area affected by the fire to a minimum. The safety of the fire teams in the actual circumstances that are now present must be carefully considered, and an assessment of the risks made before deciding exactly how to tackle any fire. One major decision is whether to fight the fire directly, using a fire team with hoses, or indirectly, using any fixed system we have. Fixed systems avoid risks to the crew, but are often one-shot systems, so will be unavailable once used up. During a fire, communications from the on-scene commander will let the management team know if the firefighting plan is working. As a fire situation can change quickly, the management need to be kept fully informed to see if the plan needs to be changed. Make sure that good communications have been established and tested before firefighting teams enter any space to tackle a fire directly. Surrounding noise is one of the biggest barriers to effective communication, as this can make a message difficult to understand. This is particularly the case with a message from a person wearing a BA set, who may also find it difficult to listen to messages. When there is background noise, communication should be concise, spoken slowly, short, and kept to a minimum. Message markers are a good way of making communications easier to understand. Markers used to precede a message include instruction, advice, and warning. To assist crew wearing BA sets, there can be a dedicated radio channel for them, allowing internal and external communication. SOLAS requires at least 2 dedicated radios for use when firefighting. The response to a fire is not limited to the organisation on board the vessel. When a fire breaks out, it is often necessary to receive assistance. For this reason, it's important to inform others and get advice. One of the first groups to inform is the emergency services or search and rescue teams. A shore-based team will also communicate closely with the vessel. The designated person ashore will be informed at some point, as well as the port state, and possibly the manufacturer of any product that is on fire. There may also be communications with an insurance company, local correspondent, the local Coast Guard, a specialist firefighting company, a port authority, a local fire brigade, an environmental agency, a port agent, and the media. Do not allow these communications to be a distraction for the person directing firefighting operations. Delegate these communications to another member of the bridge team if possible. Here is a reminder of the main learning points from this chapter. The first actions in the event of a fire. The muster, checking for missing persons, and restricting the spread of the fire are particularly important and should be well drilled. The safety of the crew should be the main factor in deciding whether to fight the fire directly using fire teams or use the fixed system, if we have one for the area of the fire. When would an on-scene commander be used on your ship, and who would this be? Do drills on your ship include realistic missing persons scenarios and searches? Is the actual operation of fire flaps and dampers tested on fire drills? And do enough people know how to shut down ventilation, and where the emergency stops are located? How would you know where all of the dangerous goods are located on your ship? If you think a fire drill has revealed a weakness in the plans, equipment or procedures to fight a fire, what would you do about it?